The history of the Moravian Church. In the 15th century, the Catholic Church largely had a monopoly of deciding how to exercise Christian faith in Europe. All services were in Latin, even though only a few people could actually understand that language. The Church also decided how people were supposed to live their lives. If they had sinned against God, they could buy an indulgence, a kind of repentance declaration, which would enable them to enter heaven anyway. It was all about power and money. With the invention of indulgences, the influence and wealth of the Catholic Church grew considerably. The Church already owned large estates and could thus levy taxes. The Catholic Church was big business. All these factors contributed to a further distancing of the Church from what it was all about in the first place, the Christian gospel. One of the most famous people who spoke up against the indulgences and the Latin services was Luther, but there were others before him. The Czech Jan Hus drew attention to himself by preaching in his Czech mother tongue, so that the congregation could actually understand what he was saying. That also allowed his ideas about the Church having to be less about business and more about faith to spread rapidly among the people. His popularity did not escape the attention of the Catholic Church, which defended its monopoly of truth and eventually burned Jan Hus at the stake as a heretic in 1415. However, the ideas of Hus lived on, and a faithful congregation carried his thoughts and visions with them through the turbulent times to come, with increasing conflict between the Catholic Church and Protestants. Belonging to a religious minority, however, was equal to being persecuted by everyone at large, and thus there were only a few members left when they sought a sanctuary with Count Nikolaus Ludwig von Zinzendorf in Saxony in the early 18th century. Zinzendorf himself had thought about establishing a religious sanctuary which could hold a space for the development of a belief favoring a close relationship with Jesus and the Gospel of the New Testament. So here, in Saxony, the community established a settlement on a hillside of the mountain called Hut, and they referred to themselves as Herrenhuder. This is a name with a double meaning of both being on guard for the Lord and under the guardship of the Lord. After some internal disputes, they were all gathered and united in one unity. And in order to emphasize the importance of being equals and peers, they called themselves the Renewed Unity of Brothers, or colloquially, the Moravian Church. The ideas and values which the Moravians chose as their starting point have turned out to be of long standing. They actually created a way of life which was based on welfare, long before our modern welfare system was invented. The community had a higher priority than the individual, and enlightenment, education, and equal rights were high priorities as well. Being part of the Protestant movement, the Moravians profiled themselves in relation to their surroundings by having profound work ethics. They believed that hard work, discipline, high-quality craftsmanship, and modesty was the best way to honor God. These ideas meant that in many fields, the Moravians were way ahead of their time, and that gave the members an advantage. The rumor of the quality of their work spread, and the Moravians became a well-established and popular community. Their high standards and stable communities made it possible for them to establish new settlements in Europe, North and South America, Africa, and Scandinavia. Count Zinzendorf had contacts to the Danish royal family and asked King Christian VI if there was a possibility of establishing a colony in Denmark. But the one who invited the Moravians to Denmark was King Christian VII. After having visited a Moravian town in Holland, together with his physician in order, Johann Friedrich Struensee, he decided to make contact with the Moravian headquarters in Herrnhut. It was probably very much the work of Struensee which resulted in this invitation. Since the king had psychological problems and found it difficult to focus on reigning the country, Struensee wanted to develop society through trade, craftsmanship, and industry, and that is where Christiansfeld enters the picture. The southern part of Jutland needed regional development, and a proficient Moravian colony could contribute to growth and development in the region. In 1772, the planning of what was to become Christiansfeld began. Unlike the majority of Danish towns, which had sprung up spontaneously at fords, important crossroads, or natural harbours, all Moravian towns were planned according to the concept that the structure of the town was meant to support the social organisation. For instance, they built the church hall, instead of a town hall, facing the central square, and they built special houses for the so-called choirs, into which the community was divided according to age, gender, and marital status. There were choirs for unmarried men, unmarried women, married couples, and widows. When the plan was made, the building work could begin. And many aspects of the building process itself were contrary to the contemporary standards too. At that time, most houses were built as half-timbered houses, with supportive wooden beams and mud walls. These materials are not long-term durable, and only few houses of that kind have been preserved until today. But the houses in Christiansfeld were quite different. Here, the houses were built in solid and durable high-quality materials. All houses were built with solid foundations and both outer and inner masonry walls. And the best proof of the craftsmanship and quality is the city centre, still standing today as it was originally erected. The Moravian community is still here as well. It counts around 400 members in Denmark, and 150 of these live in or around Christiansfeld. And that is one of the reasons why the town was adopted on UNESCO's list of World Heritage Listing preservation-worthy sites all over the world. Christiansfeld is famous for the charming streets with an atmosphere of their own, and beautiful tiled stoves, and the tasty honey cakes. It is also proof that good craftsmanship is of great value at all times. Likewise, the fundamental Moravian values such as enlightenment, education, and equal rights have turned out to be endurable ideas, which will last into the future.